Hi, I'm Trina Campbell. We're here at the beautiful Laval Farms. The following is the latest in a series by internationally acclaimed horseman Peter Campbell. Watch Peter as he reveals to you the time-honored philosophy where the horse's mind and the human's mind join together as one. Thank you for watching.
Come to these clinics, I'm learning that there's easier methods and it's working. It's a philosophy, it becomes part of your life, you use it in all your life, and you start thinking like that.
There were a couple of horses, and then some horses didn't work out. And disappointed about that now, because if I had known what I know now from studying with Peter, I would have still had those horses probably. You know, I wouldn't have given up on them.
He had her doing less, and ultimately she got more. And that's a tough concept for people to understand.
And I think in our lives, you know, you buy a computer, you get a manual, you buy a car, you get a manual, and it's got all these things that you do and it doesn't. But the horse, see, he feels and he thinks, and he gets hot and he gets cold and he gets sick and he gets well. And he doesn't, there's no rule book there. There's no book of guidelines. Do this, get this, because it changes. Everything you do with him is trying to get him so that he understands he gets zero pressure. There's zero pressure when he responds. They're in search of zero pressure all the time. And if you just do a little bit all the time, it can make him, if you never get him to respond, then it can make him harder and harder and harder and harder and harder. And it's no different in your legs. The yellow horse that was bothered, you see he's a lot better there today. And yesterday's change, you see today's change, you'll see tomorrow. See, that's what's taking place there. And he's more let down, he's more at peace with himself. But she asked, you know, he wouldn't go over to the fence. And she would bump the horse with her legs. But what can happen with some of you is that your legs aren't effective. It's been so calloused up that now it doesn't matter how much you do, you're not going to get to his feet. So you have to be careful that you get your legs so that he doesn't blow through your legs, your horses, so that when you ask him to move, he moves. When you ask him to step over, he steps over. And until you get that working, it's just about like you might as well ride the fence, because it's not effective. You have to become effective with your horse for him to understand it. And from one moment to the next, you're trying to do as little as it takes, but you do what it takes, no more, no less. And a lot of these things are just words until you start to do it, until you start to understand how much to do. And I don't think you should be afraid of doing. Some of you maybe might be thinking, oh, I don't want to do too much. Well, you know what? I don't think any of you are going to do too much. When your horse isn't trying, I think you need to do enough to get him to try. And you need to get him so he doesn't blow through your legs, side to side or forward or back, or your reins. Your reins are just as important, you know. When I ride him forward and I ask him to stop, see, he stops. If I hold there and I take my legs off him, then he moves away from pressure, you see. If I touch him with my right leg, he can step over to his left with his hindquarters, see? So you need to get that working, or it'll be very difficult to get much going with your horses. If every time somebody asked, my horse really, they said their horse really chews the bit, and I said, well, rub it faster than what it chews. Well, if you've been rubbing for 3 days, it's not effective. It's not working, right? So then, pretty soon it builds on those things. The horse is very smart. He can build on the littlest thing. So you got to be kind of careful, It's kind of like that horse of Pat's kind of wanting to just bring it out here. Just bring your horse out here. But you see, it kind of wants to kind of get troubled there and chew on the bit a little. And it's not that what we're trying to get across to it isn't working, but if you're not careful, see, what it's trying to do is yawn. See, it's trying to do that, and it's trying to let down. And so you can see it. He's trying to yawn. We'll just play around here. He might not make it. See, there he goes. And that's what was causing it there. But when they get let down, that might only surface for just a little tiny bit. But if you're not careful, if it goes back to chewing, you got to kind of evaluate, why is it chewing, right? It's not important what it's doing, it's important why it does it. Why is it doing these things? That's why it's important when your horse is trying to relax and let down that you allow it to. That's why you hear me say, don't hang on to it so tight, right? Because a lot of times they're trying to let down, and you need to give them slack in the reins. And if you hang on to you can let them relax and let their head and neck down. A lot of times when they find that place to let down and relax, if they put their head and neck down, they'll want to move off. And then you just ask them to step back, start again. But it's kind of like it's not really, but it's kind of like they're chasing the slack in the reins. When you take a hold of it and then you open it up because you've always held them, when you open it up, they're like, where is that? Where is it? Where's that contact? And then when you open up, then it goes down and it says, well, it's not there, so then it tries to walk forward to catch back up to it. And so think about that. You see? So you have to be careful. See, it's not chewing now. And some horses are busier than others. Some are not so busy. Some are more sensitive than others. But you need to kind of keep track of things and keep it in a frame of mind to where most of them all look pretty good now, pretty let down from where some of them started. But as you get going and as you get to asking your horse more things to do, they can get troubled and upset and bothered. And like I said, you're not trying to bother them, you're not trying to upset them, but you allow them to work at the wrong thing. Does that make sense to you? And the main part of it is you need to get control of his hindquarters. You need to keep your horse centered. If I asked you all to ride over to the fence and keep him pointed to the fence, then you need to keep him centered between your hands and your legs and keep him straight. Not over here and over there and back there and up there. Keep him right there. Have a picture in your mind, and that's where it's going to stay, and that's what you're going to do. Now, whatever it needs to do in the process of finding out, working at the wrong thing, that's acceptable. But you still have a picture in your mind of what you wanted it to do. And then when it heads in that area, it tries the smallest change, the slightest try, then you ease off. You stop.
You really have to step outside yourself. You have to leave the pride and previous paradigms outside the arena. You learn new paradigms. It's like everything you thought maybe was the truth, maybe it was then, but it's not now. And again, that task loading of trying to, ride a moving target that has a brain, feel it, stay in the saddle, and try to understand why it's acting like it does. Yeah, it's a continuous process.
There's some things like loping in a circle. I always do lots and lots of circles with my horses, lots. I just don't go around and around and around, but I do lots of circles. And I think you might find out today, and that's why you're all here, but we're going to lope. And we're going to lope some circles. And you ought to be able to lope around there in a nice circle. And it shouldn't be a bunch of work for you. It shouldn't be tiring. If it's tiring, it's because you haven't got your horse responding with respect. That's why it's tiring. That's why you get tired. Because you're working at it. We're over here, in here, oh, there, no. Right? So you really have to keep track of all these things and keep him, again, if you go to do a circle, if he blows through your leg or your hands, it's not going to be a circle anymore. Does that make sense? So you're trying to get it so that the horse will stay between your hands and your legs. And no hesitation whatsoever. If you're riding straight, if you ride your horse straight away here, and you ask him to leg yield, he ought to go that way. And you ask him to leg yield, he ought to go that way. Now he can't do it, he can't leg yield. If you're going to the right and all of a sudden you ask him to go left and his foot was on the ground, he can't do it. You've got to get him when his foot's in the air. So we're just going to go around here a little bit, and we're going to practice doing a one-rein stop for a little bit on both sides. And you're going to make sure when you do a one-rein stop, this is for your emergency, you're going to bend his head, bump him in the belly, disengage his hindquarters, and then stop with your leg and rub him when he stops. And it shouldn't feel hard. It might feel hard, but you'll bend him, move his hindquarters. But you move his hindquarters in motion, but watch what happens. If I did it now, see, he might just shoot out of there. So you got to have direction on the rein when you ask his hindquarters to move. And you can never overdo that. You couldn't overdo it. I don't think you could. But you couldn't overdo that. Do too much of it. And the horse is always in search of straightness. Does that make sense? In the colt class, a good example. If you have the halter on him and you're on the ground and you ask him to round his body and step his hindquarters over, he's got some different ways to get straight. He can either take his nose the other way and jump up in the air, or rear up and then get straight from that pressure, or he could step his hindquarters over and get straight. So there's a couple different ways he could get straight. But the one way of getting straight where he takes it, if you asked his hindquarters to step to the right and he tipped his nose left, he shouldn't step it over like that. But the next thing, if you're not careful, instead of him, when you took a hold of him on this left rein, instead of him stepping over to the right, he just takes his head back to being straight and goes straight. So he is straight, but he's not giving. And that's important to keep all those pieces in there. And once he gets straight, then you try to see how little it takes to get that same thing accomplished. So I won't keep you standing still. So let's all go to the right of the arena, spread out.
There's an old saying that
when the student is ready, the teacher appears, or something to that effect. I think that's so true in this work, because a person has to be ready for the message before I think they can truly absorb it and understand it. I heard Peter say some things today that I've been hearing for, say, 7 or 8 years, but until the time's right or you see the situation being set up, it doesn't make any sense.
As long as you're struggling trying to get him to respond on his body, it's really going to be tough. So that's why it is so important to get it at the walk and at the trot, and then get him to lope, and then start asking him to do these things at the lope. It's just as important to go slow. Some people always walk, and they get it pretty good, but the horse never has any experience at going at the trot. And then he has no experience at going at the lope. Now, when they go, watch how the horse goes and takes the lead, okay? Away you go. Now watch. What I would like is for the horse to keep his nose tipped to the left. He shouldn't tip his head to the right when he lopes. Now see how Cat's horse has got its nose tipped to the right? There, now it's starting to shape. Now try not to make that happen. Let her go straight there. Now just start shaping it easy on the left corner. Easy. There, see how it got rounder? And you kind of got to keep up on that left corner to keep his body from coming in. And this is the same as in the cow working when I said you can press off the cow. Now see, Cat, you need to do a little bit with your left rein, just a little, to help its jaw. See, try not to cross your hand over its neck. All you need to do is keep that left rein in close to his shoulder blade. Just easy. There, that's better. Feel it? Now, again, just try to help it stay straight. See, it lifts its head and neck up to get relief from pressure. That's why it lifts its head up, because she makes contact on the left rein to help it stay straight, and it lifts its head up to get relief from that instead of responding through the feet. It's not what you put on his head, it's what you put in it. It's not what you put on it, it's what you put in it. It's not the bit, people, well, a good example, somebody said, well, the horse had sore hocks. He's always sore. So they try shoes and chiropractic and all this kind of stuff that's out there. And it wasn't that at all. It was that he was tight through the loin and the hindquarters. Or somebody might say, my horse slings his head, so I tried a different bit. And now he doesn't do it. It wasn't the bit at all. It was his feet. He wasn't responding. But you see, we're always looking for a quick fix, right? It's like a lady called me the other day, said, my horse is bucking. I think his back is sore. I said, well, I don't know. Can't see the horse. I got to see the horse. So she ended up bringing it to a clinic, and she said, what do you think? And I said, well, I don't think it's his back. Oh, how do you know? I said, well, because it's his feet. He won't move his feet. Oh, well, I spend $300 on this fancy saddle pad. Well, that's nice. Well, I got a new saddle. I said, oh, okay, good. You need good saddle. You need a nice saddle pad. If your saddle's hurting him, that's one thing. If your saddle pad's got a bunch of nails sticking out of it, that's one thing. But we're always looking for this quick fix. But think about if you were the unsuspecting horse person, and somebody said, oh yeah, you need this, all this stuff. Think about how much money you could spend. It's interesting to me to see it, and it's interesting to me to get it across to you, because it's not what happened, it's what happened just before it happened. That's the part you need to feel so that you can help him to try something else. So it's not important that he comes into the center, it's important that you feel him get ready to come into the center, and you say, over, no, direction. Directing, pretty soon suggesting. You see. So all these things, all these pieces are very, very important.
There shouldn't be a price tag on this. You can't even compare. I mean, what I've got out of this has made my life safer, happier, because I'm understanding things about me, and it's working. It's working, so I can't say that. I mean, what the cost is, I would tell everybody, take it, and then you'll see it works.
Well, see, it's the whole person. It's the inside. You notice a lot of times when I'll go over to your horse, he'll be like, because see, he feels that in me. Whoa, there's something going on here. What? I'm not going to run this guy over. You see? Because it's just like a horse. You could turn two horses in a pen and never seen one another, and they feel that energy. Bring it back to a trot. The way they shift their weight forward is by you using your inside leg. If you can roll them into the lope with a soft feel, you do so. If you're working on upward transitions, fine. If you're working on downward transitions, ask for the soft feel at the trot, release it, ask him to lope.
For more information on clinics or videos, contact our office at 1-800-349-7078 or find us on the internet at willingpartners.com.